You're telling me this creature survived that? The voice belonged to Dr. Vernox, a Zelian medic with skin that shimmered like a kaleidoscope of colors under the bright medical lights. His 6 translucent eyes blinked in a wave-like sequence, each one focusing intently on the holographic projection floating before him. It displayed a human, disheveled, battered, and yet, somehow, alive. Not only survived, replied Dr. Quiv, a Xantherian with a spindly frame and a perpetual aura of skepticism. Her voice crackled faintly, as though her very words were laced with static. This human walked 15 of their Earth miles after sustaining injuries that would have left a draft. A species known for its regenerative abilities, incapacitated for weeks. Vernox's eyes widened. 15 miles? In this condition?
Yes.
Quiv's tone was clipped, her disbelief palpable. Rib fractures, internal bleeding, dehydration, and, she paused, tapping her elongated fingers on the control panel, burns covering 20% of their epidermis. Impossible, Vernox muttered, leaning closer to the projection. They're fragile creatures. Fleshbound, easily injured, no natural armor or enhanced regenerative traits. And yet, he trailed off, shaking his head. And yet, they continue to defy every logical conclusion we've drawn about biological resilience. Quiv finished for him. It's why they've earned their nickname among the galactic medical community. Vernox chuckled dryly. The walking paradox. Apartment. The door to the medbay hissed open, and another alien entered. This one was Dr. Krex, a bulky, armored Urkthan whose species had famously evolved under extreme gravitational conditions. Despite his intimidating appearance, Krex's voice was deep and calm, like distant thunder. "Are we discussing humans again?" he rumbled, his mandibles clicking faintly as he spoke. "I heard we had another case." "More than a case," Quiv said, gesturing to the projection. "Another miracle." Krex leaned in, his 4 eyes narrowing. "What happened this time?" "Ship malfunction," Quiv explained. The humans' vessel crash-landed on a Class 7 toxic planet. Poisonous atmosphere, extreme temperatures, minimal resources. "They survived?" Krex asked, though his tone suggested he already knew the answer. "Not only survived," Vernox said, his voice tinged with incredulity. "They managed to repair their communicator and signal for help. Alone. With injuries that would have killed most beings within hours." Krex let out a low, rumbling hum. "Fascinating. Fascinating is one word for it," Quiv said, her voice tight. "Infuriating is another. How are we supposed to understand their physiology when it refuses to follow any known rules?" Vernox glanced at Quiv, his expression thoughtful. "Perhaps that's the point," he said quietly. "Humans aren't meant to be understood. They're an anomaly, a paradox." Quiv sighed. "Paradox or not, it's our job to figure them out. The Galactic Medical Council expects answers." Krex chuckled. "Good luck with that. Humans defy answers. They thrive on chaos, on unpredictability. Perhaps that's why they survive. They're not bound by logic the way we are." Quiv scowled. "That's a romanticized notion, Krex. Biology doesn't care about chaos or unpredictability. It's governed by laws, by patterns. Humans must have some hidden trait, some secret, that explains their resilience. We just haven't found it yet." Vernox tilted his head, his shimmering skin shifting to a thoughtful shade of blue. "What if the secret isn't in their biology?" Quiv's static-filled voice crackled louder. "What do you mean? What if their resilience is psychological?" Vernox suggested. "A result of their unique mindset?" Krex nodded slowly. "They are stubborn creatures. I've seen humans refuse to give up in situations where any rational being would have accepted defeat. Stubbornness isn't a survival trait," Quiv snapped. "It's a liability." "Not for them," Vernox said. "For humans, it's a strength. Their willpower drives them to push beyond their limits, to endure the unendurable." Quiv crossed her spindly arms, her frustration evident. "Even if that's true, it doesn't explain how their bodies manage to keep up with their minds. Willpower can't heal fractures or prevent organ failure." "Perhaps not directly," Vernox admitted. "But the mind and body are interconnected. Their determination could influence their physiology in ways we don't yet understand. Quiv opened her mouth to argue, but Krex interrupted her. Enough debate. The human is here, isn't it? Let's ask them ourselves. The room fell silent for a moment. Then Vernox nodded. A reasonable suggestion. Bring the human in. Moments later, the door hissed open again, and a human stepped into the medbay. Their movements were slow and deliberate, evidence of their injuries, but their gaze was steady, almost defiant. They wore a makeshift sling around one arm and had a faint smile on their bruised face. "You wanted to see me?" the human asked, their voice calm but tinged with curiosity. Vernox studied the human for a moment before speaking. "Yes, we have questions. About you. About your resilience." The human raised an eyebrow. "Resilience? You mean how I'm still alive?" "Exactly," Quiv said, stepping forward. "Your injuries should have been fatal. Yet here you are, walking, talking, repairing your ship. How?" The human shrugged, wincing slightly at the movement. "I don't know. I just did what I had to do." "That's not an answer," Quiv said sharply. "We need specifics. What drove you to keep going? What gave you the strength?" The human thought for a moment, then smiled faintly. "I guess you could say it's just how we're wired. When things get tough, we don't give up. We find a way. Even if it seems impossible." Vernox leaned closer, his expression intense. "But why? Why do you push yourselves to such extremes?" The human met his gaze, their eyes unwavering. "Because giving up isn't an option. Not for us. It's not about logic or biology. It's about hope. As long as there's a chance, no matter how small, we'll fight for it." The room fell silent again, the alien medics exchanging glances. Finally, Krex spoke, his deep voice tinged with admiration. "Hope. That's the secret, isn't it?" The human nodded. "Hope, and maybe a little bit of stubbornness." They smiled. "It's what makes us human." Vernox turned to Quiv, his shimmering skin shifting to a contemplative shade of green. "Perhaps the answer we've been seeking isn't something we can measure or analyze. Perhaps it's something we can only learn from them." Quiv sighed, her static-filled voice softening. "Maybe you're right. Maybe the walking paradox isn't a puzzle to solve, but a lesson to learn." The human chuckled. "Glad I could teach you something. Now, if you don't mind, I'd really appreciate a glass of water." Krex laughed, his thunderous voice echoing through the medbay. "Of course. Resilient or not, even humans need water." As the medics tended to the human, their earlier frustration gave way to a newfound respect. The walking paradox had once again proven that some mysteries weren't meant to be solved. They were meant to be marveled at. In the weeks that followed, the incident sparked a shift among the galactic medical community. Vernox, Quiv, and Krex presented their findings, or rather, their lack of concrete findings, to the Council. They argued that humans' resilience was not just a matter of biology, but a combination of mental fortitude, cultural values, and an unshakable belief in the possibility of triumph, no matter the odds. The Council was divided. Some dismissed the medics' conclusions as overly philosophical, demanding empirical data to back their claims. Others, however, saw the value in this new perspective. The idea that resilience could stem from something as intangible as hope intrigued them, challenging the conventional ways of understanding life. Back on Earth, the human who had survived the crash, a pilot named Alex Carter, recovered fully and resumed their duties. When asked about their experience by journalists, Alex kept their explanation simple. "I just knew I had to make it. Giving up wasn't an option." That sentiment echoed across the galaxy, inspiring species far and wide. The walking paradox became a symbol of perseverance, a reminder that sometimes the greatest strength lies not in the body but in the spirit. For the medics who had witnessed Alex's resilience firsthand, it was a humbling experience. They continued their research, not to solve the paradox but to honor it, learning from humanity's example and applying those lessons to their own understanding of survival and hope. And so, humans remained a mystery, a stubborn, hopeful, extraordinary mystery to the galaxy. A paradox not to be unraveled but to be admired, proving that some questions were better left unanswered.